Napoleon Hill titled, and I'm quoting here, "Act as if everything always works out."
It's an asset, a capital asset.
Because this is where theory ends and action begins. The source introduces what it calls the burn the bridge method.
It's not magic. It's mechanics. It's a system.
It's a short one. Comfort is a liar. Say more about that. That's powerful. Welcome back to the Catalyst Power. I have to be honest with you, and with everyone listening. When I first look at the stack of research for today, I was skeptical.
Skeptical. That's a polite way of putting it. You looked at the title on the dossier and gave me that look like I'd just suggested we invest our entire pension fund in magic beans.
Exactly. And then you drop a transcript on my desk based on the wisdom of Napoleon Hill titled, and I'm quoting here, "Act as if everything always works out." It sounds like something you'd find on a throw pillow, not in a boardroom. It sounds a bit like, well, fluffy.
It does. It absolutely does. And that is exactly why we need to do this dive. Because if you stop at the title, you miss the mechanics. And what we are looking at today isn't magic.
Okay.
Isn't manifestation in the TikTok sense where you just wish for a Ferrari and it appears in your driveway. This is engineering.
That's the pivot point for me. You're arguing that this is mental engineering.
Precisely. We are stripping away the fluff. We are putting on our economist hats for this. Yeah, we're going to look at the minds of the people who literally built the modern industrial world. Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, Charles Schwab.
The Titans.
The Titans. And we aren't asking how they felt. We're asking how they functioned. The source material argues that their mindset wasn't a personality quirk. It was an asset, a capital asset, just like a factory or a patent that they deliberately programmed for a financial return.
Well, can you blame me? We usually deal in hard data here. Supply chains, geopolitical shifts, tech stacks, market analysis.
The hard stuff.
So our mission today is to what? Reverse engineer that asset?
That's it.
We're going to see if we can decode how these giants used assumption as a form of actual currency, and more importantly, how you listening, whether you're a CEO, a freelancer, or just starting out, can install that same operating system to generate real tangible wealth.
And I want to set the stakes immediately, right from the top. This is not casual advice. The source material is explicit about this. This isn't about just feeling better. It's about a fundamental shift in how you command your future. It's about recognizing that the version of you that hesitates, the version that looks for safety, it simply cannot be the same version of you that builds an empire.
That's a heavy concept to start with. The version that hesitates cannot build the empire.
It's almost like physics. You just can't move in two directions at once. You do not move toward security and toward risk-based wealth at the exact same time.
Okay, so let's unpack the core mechanism before we dive into the history. The key phrase here is acting as if. To the cynic, and I'm playing the role of the cynic today, that sounds a lot like fake it till you make it. We've all seen the Silicon Valley Grill Fest, where people pretend to have a product they don't have. Is there a difference here?
There is a massive difference. And it comes down to intent and internal reality. Faking it implies deception. It implies you're covering up a deficit.
You're trying to fool someone else.
Exactly. You feel small, so you act big to fool the other guy. That's a scam. At its worst, that's fraud. Acting as if, as it's defined in this text, is leadership of self. It's not about fooling the market. It's about aligning your internal navigation system.
Leadership of self. Break that down for me.
Think of your mind as a cybernetic mechanism, like a thermostat in your home. A thermostat doesn't hope the room gets to 72 degrees.
Right, it doesn't cross its fingers.
No. It assumes the setting is 72 degrees, and then it engages the machinery, the furnace, the fan, to align reality with that setting. It treats the setting as the truth and the current temperature. That's just an error that needs correcting.
Whoa. So if I set my internal thermostat to struggle, my mind will mechanically look for ways to cool down my success, to sabotage it.
100%. The source argues that your life bends to your dominant assumptions. If your main thought pattern is, the economy is bad, clients aren't buying, or I'm not qualified for that, your reticular activating system.
That's the part of your brain that filters information, right?
It's your brain's bouncer. It decides what gets your attention, and it will actually highlight evidence to support your theory. You will literally walk past opportunities because you aren't tuned to see them. You're engaging in confirmation bias against your own bank account.
That's terrifying. You're essentially filtering for failure. You're building a legal case against yourself.
You are. You are the prosecutor in your own trial, and you're winning. But the new operating system described in the text is the override. It says, and this is a direct quote, "You cannot serve two minds."
Meaning what?
Meaning you cannot be the person who is terrified of poverty and the person who is absolutely certain of wealth at the same time. One of those identities has to die.
One has to die. That's dramatic, but I get it. It's a binary switch. You can't be half pregnant with success. You're either in or you're out.
It has to be that final. So the immediate takeaway for anyone listening, let's say you're walking into a salary negotiation or a pitch meeting tomorrow, is that your assumption is a form of currency.
How so? How is a thought currency? That feels like a leap.
Because certainty is scarce. In any market, in any transaction, certainty is the rarest commodity. Most people are riddled with doubt. They're hedging. They're unsure.
They're communicating that doubt without even saying a word.
Exactly. But if you walk into that negotiation assuming that the deal is already done, that success is inevitable, you move with a different weight. Your micro expressions change. Your tone changes. You stop asking, and you start leading. And the marketplace, it craves authority. It responds to it on a biological level.
It reminds me of how venture capitalists talk about founders. They always say they aren't investing in the product. The product will pivot 10 times. They're investing in the founder's reality distortion field.
That's the perfect phrase for it. If you doubt yourself, why on earth should I risk my capital on you? Your certainty is the first product I buy. And if you don't have that, you have nothing to sell me.
Okay, so that's the theory. But you and I both hate theory without proof. We need to see this in the wild.
Let's do it. The source material brings out the heavy hitters, the titans of industry, and it focuses on them not as historical figures, but as case studies in this specific mental engineering. Let's start with the big one, Henry Ford.
The man who put the world on wheels. And interestingly, the man who hated experts.
Now we all know the story of the Model T and the assembly line, but the source focuses on a really specific episode, the one about the V8 engine. This story is a perfect clash between technical expertise on one side and economic vision on the other.
It's the perfect example of acting as if. So, to set the scene, Ford wants an engine with all 8 cylinders cast in a single block. Now, for the non-gearheads listening, we don't need to get into the metallurgy.
Right. You just need to know that at the time, this was considered an engineering impossibility. It wasn't just difficult. It was physics saying, no, you can't do this. So he calls in his engineers, and remember, these are the smartest technical minds in the world at the time. He pays them to be realistic.
What do they say?
They told him unequivocally, Mr. Ford, this cannot be done. It is physically impossible. The block will crack. The heat displacement is all wrong. They had 100 reasons why it wouldn't work.
So a rational CEO looking at his R&D budget would say, okay guys, I hear you. Let's pivot. Let's make a really good 6-cylinder. Let's not waste money chasing a ghost.
A rational CEO operating on current reality would absolutely do that. But Ford was not operating on current reality. He was operating on a future truth he had already decided on. And he told them, build it anyway.
Build it anyway. That's some serious audacity right there.
He told them to stay on the job until they succeeded, no matter how much time was required. 6 months go by. Nothing. Millions of dollars in today's money just burned.
And the engineers are probably tearing their hair out.
Completely. 12 months go by. Nothing. The engineers come back, caps in hand, and say, "We have no result. We told you, Mr. Ford, it's impossible."
And the pressure here must have been immense. This is cash burn. This is your reputation on the line. This is shareholders asking, what is Henry doing over there?
And yet Ford didn't blink. He just told them to keep going. He didn't hope it would work out. He had decided it was already done. The source uses this incredible phrase. He moved forward like the world was wrong and his vision was already done.
I love that, like the world was wrong. It's pure arrogance, but it's an effective arrogance, isn't it?
But is it arrogance? Or is it visionary asset management? He held the vision so firmly in his mind that the material world eventually had to reorganize itself to match his command. They figured it out. They found the way to cast the block. The Ford V8 was born, and it changed the auto industry forever.
So the economic implication here is that wealth, I mean true empire-level wealth, it isn't created by optimizing what already exists.
No, that's incremental gain. True wealth is created by those who hold a vision before the infrastructure for it even exists. Ford was betting on a future he was personally constructing in his mind. If he had waited for the engineers, the experts of the now, to validate him, he would have failed. He had to act as if the engine was real, long before it was real.
Let's pivot to another titan, Thomas Edison. The source mentions the famous 10,000 failures statistic regarding the light bulb. We've all heard this story in elementary school as a lesson in grit. You know, try again. But the deep dive analysis here suggests there's a much deeper economic principle at work.
Yes, the grit narrative is way too simplistic. It implies he was just being stubborn. What Edison was actually doing was a masterclass in what we could call asset framing.
Asset framing. What do you mean by that?
It's about how you classify the data coming in. Most people, when they try something and it doesn't work, they classify that event as a loss. It's a debit on their mental balance sheet. I wasted time, I wasted money.
And when you accumulate too many losses, what do?
You quit to stop the bleeding. That's basic accounting. Cut your losses. Pivot. Fail fast. All that stuff we hear today.
But Edison didn't use that accounting system.
Not at all. He famously said he hadn't failed, he just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Now, in business terms, translate that phrase. That isn't a loss on the balance sheet. That is R&D investment.
That's a massive shift in perspective.
It changes everything. If you assume that the light bulb is already yours, that it's an asset you already own, but just haven't located the final version of yet, then every experiment isn't a failure. It's a necessary step in the procurement process. You're just narrowing down the search.
So he wasn't spending effort. He was investing effort with what he considered a guaranteed return.
Correct. He operated with the certainty of a guaranteed return. Think about it for a second. How differently would you work on your business if you knew with 100% mathematical certainty that it would sell for $1 billion in 3 years? Would the setbacks today bother you?
Not at all. I'd laugh at them. I'd see them as, just plot twists in my future biography.
Exactly. You'd laugh at them. That's the act as if superpower. It removes the panic. It removes the what if I'm wasting my life narrative that paralyzes so many people. Edison could outlast everyone else because his internal accounting said he was winning even when the external world said he was failing 10,000 times over.
Okay, that brings us to the third titan, and honestly, this is the one I find most applicable to modern management. Charles M. Schwab.
Right. The steel magnate. Andrew Carnegie's right-hand man.
Schwab is fascinating because he kind of breaks the mold. He wasn't the technical genius that Ford or Edison were. The source says he knew less about steel manufacturing than almost anyone working in his mills.
Which is incredible to think about.
It is because usually in technical industries, that's a death sentence for a leader. If you don't know the code, how can you lead the developers?
Usually yes. But Schwab had a different kind of currency. The source calls it the currency of faith.
Faith in what? The market? His own ability?
Faith in the vision, and crucially, in his people. Schwab's primary economic driver was his contagious certainty. He didn't operate from fear. He operated from an absolute cheerful belief that they were building the greatest steel empire the world had ever seen.
And that actually translates to productivity on the factory floor.
It is the primary driver of productivity. The text makes this point crystal clear. Faith is contagious. In any corporate structure, certainty flows from the top down. If the leader is anxious, if they're hesitant, the team is paralyzed.
They start hedging their bets.
They hedge. They play politics. They hide mistakes. But if the leader is rock solid, if the leader looks at a crisis and smiles because they see an opportunity, the team rallies. They innovate. They run through walls.
So, in management terms, his act as if mindset was actually a retention tool and a massive force multiplier for his workforce.
100%. People want to be led. They are desperate to follow someone who knows where they're going. Schwab knew. And that certainty built the steel structures that hold up our modern world. It is the absolute foundation of leadership. If you can't believe in the vision, you can't sell the vision. And if you can't sell the vision, you go broke. Period.
It really does seem that for these guys, the mindset wasn't a soft skill, it was the hard engine. But I want to move from the who to the how. The source material outlines what it calls the laws of economic compensation. This is where we get into the math of success.
This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we leave the biography section and enter the strategy session.
It starts with the law of compensation. The source calls it a secret embedded in every fortune, which is a pretty bold claim.
It's very simple, yet almost nobody lives by it. The law states, you are not paid for your time. You are paid for your value.
I think a lot of people would nod their heads at that, but they don't really believe it in their bones. We are trained from high school to think in hours. I worked 40 hours, pay me for 40 hours. Or, I've been here 5 years, I deserve a raise.
Correct. We feel entitled to compensation based on tenure or effort. But the marketplace is cold. It's impartial. It doesn't care how long you work. It doesn't care if you tried really hard. It cares about one thing and one thing only. Did you move the needle?
So where does the multiplier come in? How do you increase your value?
The multiplier for value, according to the source, is determined by how far you are willing to go beyond what is expected.
Okay, this brings us to the extra mile. Now, I have to stop you here. Go the extra mile is probably the most cliché, overused phrase in corporate history.
It is.
It sounds like something a bad boss says to get you to work late for free. Be a team player, Bob. Go the extra mile. How do we redeem this concept?
You're right. It has been weaponized by bad management. But the source frames it in a completely different way. It calls the extra mile the emptiest mile.
The emptiest mile. I like that. Meaning there's no traffic.
Exactly. Think about it. Look at the average level of performance. Doing what you were told. Showing up on time. Meeting the basic spec of the job. The competition there is ferocious.
Everyone is doing that.
Everyone is doing that. There are millions of people willing to do exactly what they are told for a paycheck.
So if you stay on that road, you are a commodity.
You are a commodity. And commodities always get squeezed on price. Always. But the moment, the split second, you decide to deliver excellence when only average is accepted, you step into a vacuum. You step off the crowded highway and onto an open road. You enter a market tier of 1.
So, what does that actually look like in practice? Because work harder isn't actionable advice.
It's not about working harder. It's about working with a higher level of intent and ownership. It's things like, don't just bring the problem to your boss. Bring the problem and 3 vetted solutions.
I like that.
It's anticipating the client's anxiety and sending the update before they ask for it. It's delivering a report that isn't just a pile of data, but contains actual insight and a recommendation. It's taking ownership of a mistake before anyone else even knows it happened.
So, the expert insight here is that the marketplace pays for impact, not intention. It doesn't care that you meant well.
Right. And this leads directly into the next law, which creates this incredible positive feedback loop. The law of increasing returns.
The source has a phrasing for this that I found really tricky at first, but powerful once I got it. The man who does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for more than he does.
It's a total inversion of how most people think. Most people wait to be paid more before they do more. They say, pay me a manager's salary, and then I'll start acting like a manager.
Right. Give me equity in the company, and then I'll start acting like a founder.
Or just, why should I bust my back for this paycheck? They don't appreciate me anyway. And that is the trap. That is the poverty mindset in action. Because you are waiting for the reward before you make the investment.
It violates the laws of physics.
It violates the laws of physics and economics. You don't get heat from the stove until you put the wood in. The law of increasing returns says you must front-load the value. You give first.
And we have a perfect example of this with Andrew Carnegie himself.
Yes, the ultimate case study. A poor immigrant boy in a telegraph office. The lowest rung on the ladder. Not exactly a fast track to becoming the richest man in the world.
But he didn't just tap out messages like everyone else.
No. He learned Morse code by ear, which was rare. And then, and this is the key, he memorized the rail routes. He learned the logistics of the entire business. He learned how the trains were scheduled, where the bottlenecks were.
Now, was he being paid to know the rail routes?
Absolutely not. Was it in his job description? Not a chance.
So, by today's standards, he was doing unpaid labor. He was being exploited.
In the short term, you could argue that. But what was he really doing? He was making himself irreplaceable. He was building his own human capital. So when the lines got snarled up and the managers were overwhelmed, who was the one person who could step in and clear the traffic? Because he was the only one who understood the entire system.
It was Carnegie.
It was Carnegie. And when the opportunity came to manage the lines, he was the only logical choice. He had already been doing the job in his mind and in his skill acquisition for months. He got a promotion because he had already earned it.
So the challenge for the listener here is pretty confronting. It's to ask, are you performing at the level of your current paycheck, or are you performing at the level of your potential?
And it's about viewing your career as your own business. You are the CEO of You Inc., even if you're an employee. If you want to increase your stock price, your salary, you have to increase the value of the product, your skills, and output first. You give the value first. That is investing in your own career capital.
It's the complete opposite of that modern narrative of act your wage.
Act your wage is a perfectly valid strategy if your goal is to stay at that wage forever. It's a great strategy for stagnation. But if you want to run the place one day, you have to act like the owner long before they hand you the keys.
Okay, so we have the mindset, which is act as if, and we have the economic laws, which are compensation and increasing returns. Now let's look at the strategic tools. The source breaks down specific actionable tools for wealth building. The first one is definiteness of purpose.
This is what creates the fundamental distinction between what the text calls the drifter and the builder.
And I feel like a lot of people are drifters without even realizing it, especially now, with so many options.
It's the default state of the modern world. The drifter scatters their energy. They chase shiny objects. They start a drop shipping business on Monday. By Wednesday, they're trying to day trade crypto. And by Friday, they're trying to code an app.
They build everything halfway and then walk away when it gets hard.
Exactly. And the builder has a clear, unwavering aim. A target burned into the subconscious.
So why is this an economic necessity? Why can't I just be a jack of all trades and see what sticks?
Because of the power of compound interest, wealth requires focus. It requires compounding your effort in a single direction over time. If you dig 10 holes that are each 1 foot deep, you don't find water. But if you dig one hole that is 10 feet deep, you might strike a gusher. The drifter digs 1,000 shallow holes and dies of thirst.
That's a great analogy. So what's the actionable step here? Because just telling someone to find your purpose is pretty daunting.
The source is very specific and practical about this. Write it down. 1 sentence. Not a wish list. Not, I want to be rich. That's useless. It has to be a demand of what you must build. I will build the premier marketing agency for the healthcare sector in North America. That is definite. It gives your brain a coordinate to lock onto.
The source mentions Abraham Lincoln here as an example.
Yes. Lincoln's decision to preserve the Union was so final, so definite, that the text says not even a divided nation could shake it. That is the level of resolve we are talking about. In business, you need that Lincoln-esque resolve, because the market will try to shake you. Your competitors will try to shake you. Your own doubts will try to shake you. If your purpose isn't definite, you will fold at the first sign of real resistance.
The next tool is one that I think is often misunderstood: the Mastermind principle.
Huge. And you're right, it's often misused. People think it just means networking or, having coffee with smart friends.
Right. But the definition given in the source is, no man rises alone. Acceleration is born in alignment.
Let's connect this directly to the economy. Wealth is multiplied by the minds you align with. Andrew Carnegie famously attributed his entire fortune not to his own knowledge of steel. Remember, he claimed to know very little about steel manufacturing itself, but to his mastermind group. He surrounded himself with men who knew more than he did about every aspect of the business. All of them aligned toward one single goal.
So it's the difference between linear growth, which is what you can do by yourself, and exponential growth, which is what happens when you leverage the brain power of others.
Exactly. It's 1 + 1, 110. But there is a massive warning here that we absolutely need to highlight. A warning that might cost you some friends if you take it seriously.
The weak mind's warning.
Yes, you must remove weak minds from your inner circle.
Okay, what defines a weak mind in this context? It's not about intelligence, right?
Not at all. It's about frequency. It's about mindset. The source defines them as people who gossip, people who mock discipline, people who constantly speak with doubt and cynicism. These people are not neutral presences in your life. They are actively draining your focus. They are liabilities on your balance sheet of energy.
The source gives a brutal but incredibly effective rule of thumb for this. It says, if you wouldn't trade places with their life, don't take advice from their voice.
That is pure gold.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. We let broke people give us financial advice. We let unhappy people tell us how to run our relationships. In an economic sense, this is just bad data. It's garbage in, garbage out. You have to curate your inputs. If you want to build an empire, you cannot hang out with people who are content with mediocrity. It will seep in.
It's like mental osmosis. You just absorb the standards of the people you spend the most time with.
Precisely. If everyone around you is talking about how hard the market is, guess what? You'll believe it. But if everyone around you is talking about the incredible opportunity in the market, you'll find it. You see what you're programmed to see.
The third tool is pleasing personality. Now, honestly, when I first read this in the outline, I rolled my eyes a bit. It sounds so soft. So, be nice. But looking at the example of Schwab, it's clearly a weapon.
It's an asset, a capital asset. It is human capital. Schwab wasn't the technical genius, remember? He was the leader who made people feel important, who made them want to follow him.
What are the components of it, according to the text?
A few key things. Tone of voice, speaking with conviction, not hesitation. Showing a genuine interest in other people. And relentless optimism, being a source of energy, not a drain.
But why is this an economic tool?
Because in an economy of relationships, which is what our economy is, the ability to influence without force is the highest form of currency. The text says, people move faster for men they admire. If you are a brilliant jerk, people will work for you only as long as they have to, and they'll give you the minimum. If you are a brilliant leader with a pleasing personality, people will run through walls for you. That is efficiency. That is speed. That is profit.
It's about transaction cost, right? If people like you and trust you, the transaction cost of doing business just plummets. Negotiations are smoother, deals close faster.
Exactly. Trust is a lubricant for the entire economy. A pleasing personality builds that trust instantly.
Okay, we've got the tools. Now let's get into the implementation, because this is where theory ends and action begins. The source introduces what it calls the burn the bridge method.
This is the scary part. This is the strategy of no return. And it's not for the faint of heart.
The concept is simple but terrifying. You do not truly transform until you remove the option of staying the same.
Think about the psychology of a plan B. We're all told it's responsible. Don't quit your day job until your side hustle is making X amount. Have a safety net.
It's the sensible advice.
It is. But the source argues that a divided mind is a defeated mind. If you have a safe way back to your old salary or your old comfortable life, you simply will not fight hard enough for the new empire. Your subconscious knows there's an escape hatch.
It's a survival instinct. If I have a warm cave to retreat to, I'm not going to fight the saber-toothed tiger with everything I've got.
Right. But if the cave is gone and the tiger is coming, you fight the tiger and you win. Ford is the example here again. When he bet everything on the assembly line, he didn't hedge. He didn't run a small pilot program. He retooled his entire factory. He removed failure as an option. He essentially burned the bridge to the old way of manufacturing.
But this feels incredibly risky. What if you fail?
It is risky. That's why the rewards are so high. The market pays a premium for taking calculated risks. If you keep one foot on the dock while trying to sail the boat, you just end up falling in the water. At some point, you have to commit. You have to jump.
So for you listening, this might mean finally quitting that consulting gig that's distracting you from your real startup, or cutting off the freelance side hustle that's keeping you comfortable enough not to scale your main agency.
It means removing the out. When your subconscious mind knows there is no retreat, it finds a way forward. It unlocks a level of creativity and resourcefulness that comfort suppresses.
Now, once you've burned the bridge, you need to reprogram the mind to handle that new pressure. This brings us to autosuggestion and repetition.
This is the technical how-to of the mental engineering we talked about at the start.
The source has this one sentence that just stopped me in my tracks. The mind doesn't believe what is true. It believes what is repeated.
That is a chilling sentence if you really think about its implication.
It explains a lot of modern politics, actually.
It explains everything. But let's apply it financially. Think about what most people repeat to themselves, day in and day out. The economy is bad. I can't afford that. Rich people are probably greedy. This will never work. They are rehearsing failure. They are programming their own poverty through repetition.
So the solution is to deliberately feed the mind the chosen identity. But I have to ask, is this just chanting affirmations in a mirror? It can feel a bit silly, A bit Saturday Night Live sketch.
I get that. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough. But look at the neuroscience behind it. It is neural reinforcement. You are literally writing new grooves, new pathways in your brain. The source suggests a very specific 90-day challenge.
What's the challenge?
For 90 days, you speak your vision, your new identity, out loud daily until it becomes your new baseline. Simple phrases like, I am not afraid. I act without hesitation. Everything is working in my favor.
And the goal here is to change the default setting of your brain.
Yes. So when a crisis hits, a client leaves, a launch fails, an untrained mind defaults to panic. A programmed mind defaults to its script. Everything is working in my favor. Okay, where's the opportunity here? That split-second difference in your initial reaction is worth millions of dollars over a lifetime.
It's like you're installing a firewall against panic.
That's a perfect way to put it. You are scripting your own internal dialogue, so that when the external world gets loud and chaotic, your internal world stays on mission.
We are heading into the final stretch here. Section 5 is about decision-making. And again, this connects directly back to the Titans.
Decisiveness is a core trait of the elite. The source notes that successful men decide fast and change their minds slowly, if at all.
And unsuccessful people?
Do the exact opposite. They decide slowly and change their minds fast.
Ouch. That hits a little too close to home for a lot of us, I think.
It's because indecision is the breeding ground of fear and poverty. The source has a great line. A man who delays decays.
So speed is currency.
Speed is currency. Opportunities have a shelf life. If you spend 3 weeks debating whether to launch the new product, someone else just launched it while you were making a spreadsheet.
And this all leads to what the outline calls the God mode of business, acting as if the proof already exists, which is the Rockefeller method, right?
This is pure Rockefeller. He built his wealth in his mind long before he built it in the world. He moved with the certainty of a general leading an army he knew could not be defeated.
The specific advice here is powerful. Don't wait for the bank loan to feel successful. Don't wait for the promotion to act like a leader.
This is so crucial. If you walk into a bank looking desperate and needy for a loan, you will not get it. But if you walk in with the posture and certainty of someone who doesn't really need the money because you're already successful in your mind, they will throw money at you. Banks want to lend to winners. You have to be a winner before the transaction, not after.
It comes back to this scoreboard concept. I found this really helpful. The source says, your bank account is just the scoreboard.
And the scoreboard only measures the past. If your bank account is low today, that is simply a measurement of your past thoughts and past actions. It is not a predictor of your future. Your attitude and your actions now create the future.
So if you let the scoreboard depress you,
you're letting the past destroy your future. You have to ignore the scoreboard and play the game as if the outcome is already locked in and you are winning.
That is a massive mental shift. Stop looking at the lagging indicator, which is your bank balance, and focus on the leading indicator, which is your own mindset and certainty.
The world creates room for the man who knows where he is going. The marketplace literally steps aside for the man who walks fast and with purpose. It's a natural reaction.
So, we've covered the history, the laws, the tools, and the implementation strategy. Let's bring this all home. What is the final call to action here?
The shift. It has to be a conscious shift. Walk differently. Speak differently. It sounds physical, and it is. Posture matters. Your tone of voice matters. You have to physically embody the success you want before it can manifest materially.
We've had a massive download of information today. Let's just try to summarize the core economic philosophy.
It's a chain reaction, a 4-step process. 1. It starts with assumption. You must assume success is inevitable.
Step 1.
2. Definiteness of purpose. You lock that assumption onto a single, specific target. No drifting.
3.
The mastermind. You multiply your power by aligning with other focused, powerful minds. And 4. The law of compensation. You sustain it all by delivering more value than you're paid for, knowing that the market will always correct that imbalance in your favor eventually.
It's a complete ecosystem for wealth generation.
It is. It's not magic. It's mechanics. It's a system.
I want to leave the listener with the final provocative thought from the source material. It's a short one. Comfort is a liar. Say more about that. That's powerful.
Comfort tells you that you're fine where you are. It whispers that the salary is good enough, that the apartment is nice enough. But greatness never, ever lives in the land of good enough. Comfort is the enemy of the empire you want to build.
So, the final question for you, listener, is this. What bridge are you keeping open that is actually preventing you from building your empire? What fallback plan, what safety net is costing you your fortune?
And don't just answer that question in your head. The challenge is to do something about it. Burn the bridge.
This hasn't been just another deep dive. Hopefully for you, it's been an identity installation. Re-listen to this. Repeat these concepts. Build the mind first, and the money will follow.
Act as if.
Thanks for Catalyst Power with us. We'll see you next time.